Good morning, everybody. How are you? We hope that you're well. I want to give you a little update on some events in the South African economy over the past few days. These are recent events. They do not include the examples from weeks ago that we've covered. Such as SA Express and SAA. So we're talking, of course, about failures of companies in South Africa at the moment. We're talking about the effects of the global financial crisis that emerged, or whose first severe symptoms showed on, I'm going to push this back a little bit, on the night of September the 16th, 2019, when the core of the American financial system, the core, let's call it the central pillar, began to crumble, and the banks refused to do business with one another overnight, leading to the Federal Reserve Bank intervening with a sponsorship or a subsidy, if you like, of $53 billion in one night. It then progressed to something like $105 billion a night. So this long predates the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has naturally exacerbated things, but it has also served as a camouflage or a disguise of pre-existing conditions. I emphasize this so that you understand well that what I'm about to describe to you is not attributable solely to the pandemic. In the past few days, week or so, Edcon has announced that it's going to retrench 22,000 workers. Foschini is raising money. It's doing a rights issue to raise 900 million rand to see it safely through the forthcoming period. That's how worried they are. And they've said it's not for capital expansion, it's not for investment, it's not for mergers and acquisitions, it's not to buy new assets, it is to stabilize them to get through what's coming. Cell C announced yesterday, I believe, that it is going to lay off 40% of its workers. Bidvest Air Services announced about a week ago that they will be laying off 87% of their employees. 87%. Sasol is undertaking a new program called Sasol 2.0, an entire revamp of the company and its orientation, what businesses it's involved in, how many people it has, what it's going to focus on, and so forth, which apparently is going to gut many thousands of employees from Sasol. Glencore, the mining company, has announced that it's going to have job cuts in its chrome divisions, which will affect 5 factories and 2 mines. And they've refused to state how many people are going to lose their jobs, which is an ominous thing, because if it was a small number of people, they would have gone to great lengths to reassure us that they're trying their very hardest and how much they care and this and that, the next thing. They would be bragging if it was a small number. They're not saying, so one may safely assume that it's a large, dangerous number. The SABC has declared that 600 job cuts will be forthcoming. And Macro and Game, that is to say Massmart, informed us this week that their losses, they were already losing money, that their losses will jump by 50%. This is phenomenal. last week, or the week before last, I was contacted by a gentleman who's a former peer of mine in the industry in which I used to work, which is live special events, that sort of thing, who is a closet Satellander. That means that he's not an active participant Satellander. He observes from the outside, but his heart is with us. And he offered us his small holding as a phase 2 location. So I went to see it with the local Johannesburg leader, one of the West Rand regions, who will pass nearest that farm to see if it was suitable for him. And while we were there, I did a lot of catching up with this guy who is a former peer of mine in my industry. And he informed me we did numerous very big things. It was a very famous company worldwide. It was reputed to be the third largest of its type in the world. World records and all sorts of things. And they have gone into business rescue. He told me about another company that I know very well, which was always famously healthy. They were always had lots of good work, made lots of profit. You know, the owners and even the managers, the senior staff, had fantastic cars and houses and what have you. Shut down. Just shut down. And this is just one microcosm example of what is happening in the South African economy. There is enormous devastation, and it can only get worse. As I've been discussing with my colleagues in the Satellander HQ in recent days, from the research that I've been doing, there was never ever going to be an enormous crisis due to the pandemic shutdown in the month of April following the beginning of the shutdown, lockdown, on the night of Thursday, the 26th of March, because people would have lived in April off of their salaries, from their March salaries. And even April was never really going to be a critical period in some kind of emerging financial crisis, because people, companies and individuals alike, would have tightened their belts a little bit, skipped a payment here or there, perhaps bought less meat to eat. Sorry, we were talking about April. Even May was never going to be that thing. The critical phase will only be just entered in late June. And we may expect to see the worst of the effects of the pandemic shutdown, more really of the global economic crisis, in July and August. So the worst is yet to come. And in many cases, the reactions to that severe period may be delayed a little bit. So we may see companies and, frankly, homes tumbling like ninepins. You know those skittles? You play indoor bowling, what do you call it? Tumbling like ninepins in even September and October, without any other influence, without any other, even if nothing else happens, even if nothing deteriorates, we are guaranteed to see enormous financial earthquakes, if you like, or shudderings in the economy as late as October and November, even if there are no other factors that come into play. It's very severe, ladies and gentlemen. I urge you, if you can, if you're able to, endeavor to find ways to protect yourselves. Whether it means getting another job, whether it means changing professions, whether it means, God forbid, getting a second job, whether it means buying a plot of land or renting a plot of land and putting some goats on it, whether it means moving in with your parents or getting your parents to move in with you or your kids to move back home and for people to share the rent or the payment on the bond, whatever it may be, please give earnest thought to this thing. There is a very genuine and real threat. Did you know that 93% of the world's countries, not 93 of the world's 194, 195 countries, 93% of the 194, 195 countries in the world are already in recession, are in recession. You're not hearing that on SABC, are you? Yeah. I'm just going to make notes and cross things off, what have you, as we go. I want to tell you about something else. You may remember that I did a video, or some videos, a number of videos, describing how the majority of mainstream voices in the world, that is to say Bloomberg, CNBC, MSNBC, Yahoo Finance, CNN, and so on, were not admitting to the emerging global financial crisis in September, October, November, December, January, and February of this year. In March, they reluctantly began to talk about it, but they talked very much of a V-shaped recovery, a V, the letter V in English. So in other words, an economy plunges, like you might go down in a elevator, a lift, to the bottom floor, and then come straight back up again once you've pressed the button. This is what they said throughout March and April, and I'd go so far as to say almost all of May. They acknowledged that there was a problem, but toe maar, alles sal regkom. And we, Suidlanders, were one of the few prominent voices in the world, not to overstate. We don't have hundreds of millions of viewers. We don't even have tens of millions or millions. However, we are a prominent voice that is closely watched by some people. And we were one of very few telling this story worldwide and telling it bluntly and honestly and candidly, particularly coming out of a small market. The Christian conservative Caucasians of South Africa, the right-wing whites of South Africa, is a small market. But that's starting to change. These liars are now being forced to confess to what we've been trying to convince you of for so long. I'm saying to you, yes, you're not seeing it on CakeNet. No, you're not seeing it on YouTube by and large. No, it's not on the BBC World Service home site or Nuus 24. No, Naspers is concealing it from you. They have to be concealing it from you because they must know about it. If they know about it and they're not telling it to you, then they're concealing it. Now that is changing. The International Monetary Fund, I'm looking for my phone here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the thing very quickly, but the International Monetary Fund was reported by CNBC on the 16th of June, so 4 days ago or so, that what is happening now in the financial world is CNBC, the 16th of June. IMF warns of a crisis unlike anything the world has seen. Chaps, it's enormous. This is enormous that the IMF, these liars, these people who are famous for lying, these people who specialize in lying, these people who make their money out of lies, out of double dealing and deceit, and deviousness, duplicitousness, and dishonesty are, well, they're the last people to be saying it, but they're now saying boldly, a crisis unlike anything the world has seen. Unlike anything the world has seen. That means unlike 2007, 8, 9. Unlike the dot-com bubble in the year 2000. Unlike, I want to say Black Thursday, but it's not Black Thursday, Black Tuesday or whatever it was in 1987. Unlike 1929, unlike the South Sea bubble crisis, that won't mean much to many of you, but it was an enormous financial crisis that brought down the economies of half of the civilized world, half of Christendom. Unlike the tulip crisis in Holland, which damaged international trade for years. Unlike anything the world has seen. Guys, we are in for a rocky time like you can't believe, not because I say so anymore, but because my enemy is admitting it about themselves. If there's 3 of us in a room, and let's say I'm a bit of a bad guy, and I make a nasty comment about you, and there's a third party, a third person, that third person might say, well, I don't know whether to believe Simon, he's a bit rough around the edges. This other person, the second person, doesn't seem that way to me. But when you say to the third person, look, it's true, actually, I've got to admit it, then they must believe you. This is the International Monetary Fund. This is central banking. These are the people who are responsible for this crisis. We needn't go into that now. 100% responsible, 100% responsible. Admitting, yeah, what we've cooked up here is worse than anything the world has ever seen. That's enough for now. I wish you everything of the very best. We, Saitlanders HQ, all wish you everything of the very best.